Hi, everybody. I see we've got a lot of people pouring in, and this is awesome. We're going to take just another minute or two to let people catch up and come on in. And in a moment, we're also going to ask one of our interpreters to explain how to do the Spanish translation program if we need to do that, if you need to do that. So just hang in there with us for a few moments. Betsy, do you maybe want to explain about the interpretation?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'll be right back in English. Buenas noches a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí acompañándonos. Si ustedes desean escuchar la presentación en español, por favor marquen al 805-306-4500, extensión 4298. Después el código de acceso es 2258. Si desean hacer preguntas, pueden escribirlas en español en la sección de Q&A directamente y nosotros las estaremos traduciendo. También vamos a poner esta información en esa sección para que las puedan accesar de vez en cuando en la reunión. Si tienen cualquier pregunta, por favor háganla. Gracias.
All right, Serena.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So we'll just get started, and I still see people are still joining as I'm speaking. So this is wonderful. So let me just start off, real quick to introduce myself. My name is Serena Nguyen, and I'm the new social worker for the Simi Valley School District. A little bit fun fact about myself, I grew up here in Simi Valley. I'm a product of our school district. I left Simi for a few years to go to school and eventually worked there for a few years before moving back to Simi Valley. And I just can't tell you just how happy and grateful I am to be here to work with our wonderful staff, serving our children and students. And truly, this just would be impossible without the support of all of you parents. So before we start the night, I want to just send a special welcome to you. I want to really thank you for taking the time out of your very busy lives to be here with us. Being a parent myself, I just know how much planning and coordinating it takes to attend a meeting, a webinar at 7 p.m. I acknowledge your hard work. And because I just know that you might have had to quickly finish your dinner or clean up, or maybe you're cleaning up right now, doing the dishes as you're attending the webinar, getting ready for tomorrow, helping out with homework, skipping out your favorite TV show. I don't know, giving up and just doing a lot of different things to be here. And with everything that you had to do to join us and be with us tonight, truly thank you. And we're just so excited to have this opportunity to talk about a very important topic. Anxiety. And just please keep in mind that anxiety is such a big topic that just require more than just 1 hour. But with the hour that we have tonight, we just hope to provide you with as much information as we possibly could. So we'll get started. Sid, are you going to be sharing the PowerPoint? I'll go over a little bit about the agenda, and then I will introduce Sid and our speaker Jessica in just a moment. So as you're pulling this up,
sorry, could you or Jake just give me screen sharing access so I can share?
Okay, so I think Jake will be able to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
So I'll just go over a little bit about the agenda that we're going to have tonight. We'll be talking about what is normal and healthy anxiety look like, right? The anxiety that will get you to do your homework or clean up the house versus more serious signs for anxiety that would require more attention. And we will also provide you with some practical skills that you can apply for yourself and support your children. And at the end of the presentation, we will have some time to answer your questions, whether that's to clarify anything that was presented or about resources on how to support your child. Your questions will be answered by our panelists. So let me just briefly share who we have here with us. We have our elementary counselors. I can't see your faces anymore, but I believe I saw Heidi, Kelly, and Laura, and we have middle high school counselors. I think I saw Matt, and we have Dr. Jerry Block, our director of secondary education, Mrs. Julie Ellis, director of elementary education, and Dr. Hani Yusuf, our assistant superintendent. So thank you for joining us tonight. So with that being said, I'm now going to quickly introduce our speakers from Daybreak Health. We have Sid Sidambi, the Chief Operating Officer, I think I got that correct, for Daybreak, and Jessica Hammond, a licensed clinical social worker, and also going to be the presenter of the night. So Sid and Jessica, I'm turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sina. And can you see my slides okay? It doesn't show me what I'm presenting.
Yes,
Okay.
it looks great.
Perfect. And Jessica is in the top left there, everyone. It says my name again, but that's just because we're using the same link. That is definitely Jessica and not me twice. I'm really, really excited to be here with you all today. At Daybreak Health, you know, we focus on youth mental health, and we love doing workshops like this. Let me talk about Jessica, our kind of clinical expert, who's going to be weighing in on this important topic of youth anxiety and what parents can do. So Jessica is an LCSW. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She works with teens and adolescents and youth. The core of her experience is being with youth age 12 to 17. And she, in her career, has specialized in helping them with coping skills, family and peer relationships, anxiety, stress, depression. She's really an expert in that. And, you know, there's a quote from her here about why she loves that work, which is that adolescence is this time of major transition. Teenagers are open, and she appreciates how real they are. They're figuring out where they fit in, what drives them. It's exciting, it's confusing, it's stressful. And you know, she loves helping youth tackle their mental health challenges and allowing them to fully pursue their passions and enter the next stage of life, which is what this is all about. And so we appreciate Jessica taking time to speak with us. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, and like Serena said, I want to thank all the parents for being here too. I know how challenging it can be, especially at this time at night.
Great. Perfect. So, you know, I just wanted to start off with some facts about anxiety. And, you know, the first thing that's important to know is that anxiety is common, but it hides. And, you know, what we mean by that is that, you know, 41% of youth with anxiety never actually receive treatment. So it is really something that is sitting below the surface, and it can be very hard to spot. And so part of our mission is to enable parents to understand what's going on with their teens or their youth and really help them. So when we think about why anxiety goes undiagnosed and untreated so often, there's a few different reasons. The first is that anxiety symptoms are very variable. That's just a fancy way of saying it can present in a lot of different ways. You know, for example, kids with generalized anxiety often feel overwhelmed with worry, while kids with social anxiety prevent them from doing activities. Anxiety can be managed and supported. And this is an important thing that we want to talk about today, is that parents can do a lot to create supportive environments and reduce anxiety in their child. And so that is a big part of the focus today, and why we're really going to hear from Jessica. And parents should pay attention to, you know, when they should let kids work through things themselves versus when they need to intervene. And so Jessica's going to talk about signs to look for and what areas to really key in on as a parent. Counseling, in addition to parents and what they can do, can drive really significant improvements in child anxiety. And so that is something that, you know, is really important to keep in mind, and that if your child does need some supports, getting treatment earlier has many beneficial effects. And so there's a little symbol there that you don't want to wait around if you know that your child needs support, whether it's you speaking with them or whether it's them getting supports from their school counselor or any kind of other resource. All right, I will turn it over to Jessica, who's going to speak a little bit about normal stress and what might present as clinical anxiety. So because we know that this is something that's been on parents' minds.
Jessica, can I interrupt for one quick second?
Yes.
I think we forgot to let the participants know, the attendees know that we are recording this and it will be posted on the district website probably by Monday. So I just wanted to make sure that was disclosed. Nobody can see who the attendees are who are watching this. You're kept private, but everybody who's on the screen right now will be part of that recording. Thank you.
So yeah, sometimes it's hard to know if your child is just experiencing some normal stressors that we all experience, or if that what they're experiencing is clinical anxiety. So there's 3 criteria that we look at when we're trying to determine this. So the first one is time and duration. The second is daily activities and their functioning. And third are the symptom type and severity. So time and duration, we all experience stress and it can actually be beneficial to us in certain situations. It can help move us forward and like if your team's in a soccer game and give them the motivation they need to continue through that, or through a test, or if they're in danger to get out of a dangerous situation. So we all experience it, but usually once that stressor is gone, your symptoms of anxiety begin to go away within a couple hours or a couple of days. So if your teen is presented with a stressor and the stressor is now gone, but they're still experiencing symptoms within months that the stressor has been gone, then that's going to look more like clinical anxiety. Another thing to look out for are the daily activities and functioning. So if your child is experiencing some stress, but they're able to maintain their current level of functioning across multiple settings, so that's school, home, and social settings, then that might just be sort of behaviors that are due to stress. However, if they're not able to go to school, if they're beginning to withdraw, if their hygiene is lacking, if they're not able to eat and sleep, then that's going to look more like clinical anxiety. And
Yes,
then the symptoms.
sorry, Jessica, I just want to
Yeah.
jump in there because I know parents sometimes have this question, if my child is really, really worried about a test coming up, does that mean that they have, clinical anxiety? So could you talk about that example versus like the example where, for example, they're so anxious about, attending class that they have to withdraw completely, and how distinctions like that matter?
Yeah, so definitely. If your child is feeling very anxious about a test or a social situation, if they're able to work through it, and if they're experiencing symptoms of stress and anxiety around that, but then once that test is over or that social situation has gone away and they're able then to carry on with their daily activities, then that's just going to be a stress response to what was put in front of them. But if they are no longer under a stressful situation, but they're still having excessive worry, they're still feeling socially anxious, and they're not able to hang out with their friends anymore, they're not able to take care of themselves, if they're having to withdraw from school, that looks very different than a teen who's just nervous about a test for a week or so. And then, so leading into that is the severity type of the symptoms. So for someone who's stressed, they're going to have fewer symptoms and they're not going to be as intense. But someone with clinical anxiety, they're probably going to have a lot more symptoms and they're not going to be able to manage them. And they're going to be a lot more intense for the person experiencing it.
It's really helpful. And Jessica, last question on this one is, when parents are trying to analyze, okay, how long has this been going on? How severe is it? Would you recommend they note these things down? Should they keep a diary? Is that how you track like how long this has been going on, or what's the right way to kind of give perspective?
I think sort of marking points in time. Okay, school started in August, they've been feeling anxious this whole past month. And then, okay, Halloween's coming up. I'm going to see, are they still feeling this way around Halloween? Or sort of this is going away. If you're a person who likes to write something down, then definitely I recommend, taking note of things that you are seeing that are a little bit different than normal. Maybe writing the dates and looking for patterns. Is this just coming up during tests or social situations, or is this happening every single day? So I think it just kind of depends on the parent and what works for them.
Yeah, that's great. And then would you mind, we're talking about these symptoms, right, Jessica? Could you share a little bit about these different buckets of symptoms? And obviously there's a lot here. So parents are probably looking at this like, whoa, that's a lot of things. Does it mean that all of these things always present, or some of them? Could you just talk through that?
Yeah, so this is not an exhaustive list of how a child might present if they're experiencing anxiety. These are a lot of the common ones. And a child with anxiety might experience some of these. They might experience a lot of them. It's everyone presents in such a different way. But I'll go over, some of these common ones. So in terms of physical symptoms, a lot of people with anxiety, especially those who have panic attacks, are going to have pounding heart. A lot of kids complain of a stomach ache or a headache, or they just don't feel well. Someone in a social situation might have a lot of sweating. Then there's the psychological symptoms. So this could be excessive and unrealistic worry, racing thoughts, decreased concentration, which is a big one for kids. If they're not able to sort of manage their fears, they're not able to concentrate on what's going on in school and class. They might, your teen might be more irritable. They might have feelings of confusion or just feeling on the edge all the time. Some behavioral things that you might see are avoidance, so not wanting to go to school, obsessive compulsive behaviors to sort of calm those fears, distress in social situations. And this is an important one, an increase in drug or alcohol use. A lot of times teen will sort of self-medicate. And then just a general worry about what others think of them, which is also a big one for teens as well. So some acute issues might be grief and loss, relationship issues, divorce, just the demands on life right now, family interactions and school obligations.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I think we tend to think of the psychological ones, but, there's really, it can be even physical, right?
Oh, yeah.
Manifest in different behaviors.
And a lot of times it's easier for a child to talk about what they feel on their body rather than their feelings.
And so, going back, Jessica, to this question of what is normal stress versus what could be, moderate or severe clinical kind of anxiety. Do you, one question that we get a lot is, there's a lot of anxiety going around generally right now. So does it mean that, that this is clinical anxiety, or is it just a function of the time that we're living in? How would that function in when you're thinking about your a teen or a child? And yeah, we'd just love your thoughts there.
Yeah, and you're right. There is a high level of stress right now for a lot of families and a lot of teens. And I think it's just going back to those criteria again, those three categories, and just really looking at where is my child normally, and what am I seeing in front of me right now? Do those two things match up? And then what's going on in their life? So in terms of mild stress, so this might be someone who is very anxious around tests, and it happens every time they take a test. And their mood might be a little bit different. They might be a little bit more irritable, have trouble concentrating. But then the test is over and they're back to their normal selves. Someone who might be sort of on the verge of maybe having anxiety and you're not really sure. So that's going to look someone who is having behaviors that are a little bit more significant. They're not able to manage them. This is someone who is going to be very anxious at school, even when there's not a stressor, and it's really going to begin to impact their lives in a negative way. And then someone who does have clinical anxiety, the symptoms are going to be very severe. And so this one who is someone who might be having to withdraw from school completely because of the level of anxiety that they have. They might have active suicidal ideation. There's going to be dramatic changes in their behavior. They're not going to be able to function again in those categories across the board, home, school, and their community. And so those are the teens that are having more clinical severe anxiety.
Yeah, and of course it can also, when it gets to those severe levels or moderate levels, can also sometimes co-present with depression. So which is why you see some of these other symptoms. But what we wanted to hone in on was, there's a big difference between your child worrying about a test every so often, which is, more normal stress, in those situations, though every situation is different, but just more likely to be, versus, being stressed every single hour of the day, or feeling nervous every single hour of the day, which I think is surprising to some parents because, not everybody realizes that moderate anxiety can actually create, those feelings.
Yeah.
Great. So Jessica, would love to kind of jump into our next topic, which is about helping kids with anxiety about going back to school. This has been a really unique time and a unprecedented time. So can you talk a little bit about good principle for communication, first of all, in helping parents deal with children and anxiety going back to school?
Yeah, so a lot of kids right now are experiencing social anxiety. They've been so withdrawn from friends, community, people in general for the last year and a half. And so we know that a lot of teachers and administrators are saying that it's less a lack of academic decline, but more of a decline in social skills and just really how to be around other kids. And so I think the social anxiety has been pretty high lately. School has been back in session for a while, and I think now would be a really good time to check in with your child. If you don't already have a sense of how they are feeling about being back in school, just start a general conversation with them about that. Stay curious. How do you feel being back at school? Do you have any concerns or issues right now? Does your workload feel manageable? Is there anything that I can help you with?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in talking with your teen about this, I think it's important just to make sure that you set aside a time to talk when neither of you are busy. You can set your cell phones aside briefly, and just approach the conversation in a very non-judgmental way, to be open. I think it's important not to just jump to problem solving if they do express a concern, but just to really listen to what they're saying, give them a chance to explain everything that's going on. I know as a parent, you want to just jump in and solve it for them really quickly. But we know that in terms of anxiety, it's really important for your teen to stay engaged and to sort of begin to work on their problems themselves and brainstorm what works for them. And then reflect back to your teen what you heard at the end of the conversation. That can go a really long way in helping them feel heard and understood, like you get what they're saying.
Yeah, that's useful. And can you talk about, writing things down and how that can be potentially helpful?
Yeah, this is a tip I like to give parents to help their teens. So when your teen experiences something that is stressful or produces a lot of anxiety for them throughout the day when they're at school or out in the community, just to write it down. And then when they get home or they're in a place where they feel a lot more calm and they can think a little clearly, they can begin to brainstorm ideas about what they're going to do next time this happens. So if it's a class where a teacher always calls on them, how are they going to approach that the next time that happens? If they are really nervous about tests, how are they going to cope next time a test comes up? And it's a really valuable tool for them to then have skills and be prepared for the next time something happens. Also, I like the idea of a gratitude journal, and not every teen is going to be into writing down what they're thankful for at the end of the day. But I like to just put it out there. So if you do have a teen who enjoys journaling, you might want to suggest this, because we do know that if you acknowledge what you're thankful for. You are going to look for the more positive things throughout your day rather than focusing on the negative. But if your teen's not into that, maybe just suggesting it. Hey, you know, like once your cell phone's off and you're falling asleep, maybe thinking of a few things that happen throughout the day that you are thankful for. And I mean, sometimes this can be really difficult, especially for teens. Just, you know, making it through the day is something you could be thankful for. You know, not hitting any red lights on your drive home, or, you know, just little things that happened. And also another thing I like to add too is something that you're proud of that you did throughout the day. If you can just think of it, it's a nice way to end the day on a positive note. And that can be something really small too, just like, you know, I'm proud of the way that I made dinner. Or I'm proud that I attempted to do my math homework tonight. So just something small.
Yeah. I know that we have a small activity that Serena is going to lead, so I'll give it to her on this topic of writing and the power of writing with some of these areas.
Yeah, so I believe in practicing, right? And I love that Jessica provided some of the examples too. And I want to practice this for both staff and parents too. In the chat, I know it says Q&A, but in the chat, if you can just share, you know, what is something that you are grateful for? And it doesn't have to be a big thing, right? Just like Jessica said, it can be simple, like having Wi-Fi so you can attend this webinar, or tomorrow is Friday, for your family, for your friends, for your pets. Your pet plans, really just anything that is simple. So we'll give this 30 seconds before we continue, but really just get your brain to, you know, to think what is something that I'm grateful for. Sleep, I love it. Yes. Health, yes. For job during rough times, thank you so much. Spending time with my family. My job and having kids back on campus. Grateful for this session. Thank you. Family, water. We're blessed to have a faucet. Yes, for this presentation. Ah, that's so nice. For your faith, for your family, for a gentleman who paid for my dinner in the drive-thru. Wow, that's amazing. You should have called me so I could be at the drive-thru too. Cooling weather. Love it. Love the fall weather. Grateful for the staff at Santa Sue for making my daughter feel comfortable. That is so sweet. Family and food, this webinar. Grateful for you providing this service to us. Quiet time. Yes, as a parent of a toddler, I agree. A safe place to live. Grateful for Hillside Middle School. Look at you getting some shout outs. Getting a hike in early in the day. That is a level of motivation. Yes, I agree and I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll get back to you, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Serena. That was great. You know, we want to shift gears a little bit. We know we have the topic of this workshop is around youth and helping children with anxiety, but there's a subtopic that's a part of that is, you know, parents and what you've experienced during especially these last some months. And so, you know, the pandemic has been hard on everyone. And so we wanted to also address this topic. Jessica, mind just talking about why parent self-care when it comes to anxiety is important, both, you know, for themselves and for other reasons.
Yeah, so like we've talked about, this pandemic has brought on many changes and a lot of struggles for families all across the world, really. And so if you are struggling right now, it is okay. A lot of people are. And it's important to manage your own stresses. It's like the oxygen mask rule that, you know, we always talk about. You can't help other people until you help yourself. So it's really important if you are feeling stress or anxiety in certain areas of your life, whether you need to seek out therapy or the supports that you have in your life, and to carve out time for yourself. That is so important as a parent right now. And so it's okay to take some time for yourself to do what you need to do to be a better parent for your children. And kids pick up on their parents' anxiety. No matter how good you think you are of hiding it, they definitely sense it. And so being able to really just kind of hone in on what it is that you can do to help yourself, to get the support that you need, and to be a better parent, that's okay. And we encourage you to do that.
Kids pretend like they're not paying attention, but they are paying attention.
Yeah.
Jessica, I think it's so important, and I love the oxygen mask rule, because, I've spoken with many parents and they say, well, my kid is dealing with so much. How can I be thinking of myself? Isn't that selfish for me to think about, what my needs are? And so what would you say to that?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of parents feel that way, or that they're like, I don't have time. I don't have time to, to do what I need to do for myself because I'm taking care of everyone else. But again, it is, if you are depleted and you are feeling anxious and stressed out about so many areas of your life, you're not really going to be able to support your team to the fullest extent that you can.
Yeah, that's great. And what can we as parents do? We say happy parent is happy teen. It can be emotionally and physically draining to be a parent of someone of a child struggling with anxiety. So, just know that you're not alone and get support yourself, whether it's, other people in your life, other parents, or whoever it is, right? Jessica, it's important to talk.
Absolutely.
Great. So we have another activity here. I'm going to toss it back to Serena. The bar is set high from that first one, Serena, but I know that you can clear it.
All right. Well, it's kind of hard to be creative with activities when it's on a webinar platform. So you won't believe what we're going to do this time. We're going to use the chat again, but this time I want you to share, something that you can do for self-care, or just something that makes you happy, right? If you're going to but it doesn't have to be something that is a month from now, like your trip that you're going on a month from now or next year, but something that you can do today, tomorrow, if that's, an extra 5 minutes, taking a shower so your husband or your wife can take care of the kids and the pets. Just that extra time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. And we'll give everybody 30 seconds, and I'll try to reading a book, going on walks, massages and manicures. Yes, me too. Go outside, be in the sun, enjoy what is around me. Drinking my morning coffee outside, exercise, journaling, being alone. See lots of going on walks, taking a nap, a bath, exercise helps, breathe deeply. Let's see, meditation, beach walk. Okay, more going on walks and enjoying nature, sound of birds and the breeze. And I love those answers because those are real great coping skills that have actually been proven, right, to help with anxiety. Meditation, 5 minutes, trip to Dubai going tomorrow. Okay, can we come with you? Okay, that sounds great. Have a great trip. Going to a park, gratitude journal before bed. Perfect. That's what Jessica was talking about. I love this one. Going to Target by myself. Okay, cuddles with my children, talking to my friend, running, working out. You all are so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. If I missed anybody's responses, I am sorry, but thank you so much for participating.
Awesome.
Back to you, Jessica.
Thank you, Serena. That was great. So Jessica, the next topic is a big one, and it's around, anxiety that can come for kids in school around academics and their goals and, what they want to accomplish. So would love for you to chat about healthy ways that parents can channel this energy that kids have to reduce some of that, unhealthy anxiety. So I'll give it to you.
Yeah, so we know that goal setting is really important because it gives a person direction and where they should focus their energies. And it also helps kids build their self-confidence and independence as well. When you're thinking about goals or helping your child come up with goals, it's important to encourage a balance between the goal and being driven. So a lot of kids just want to get straight to the end, like they want the end result. But it's really important that you focus on, you don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture. You don't want to be so driven that you forget sort of the steps along the way. And that, plays into the second part. And that's encouraging process goals rather than outcome goals. So the outcome goal is the final goal, the thing that you're working for, but you need those little steps on how you're going to get there. And when you start achieving those little goals that you set for yourself, you're going to be a lot more motivated to keep going. Because if you just say, hey, this is the end result that I want, and you don't think about how you're going to get there, you're going to get really discouraged because you're going to lose the path and sight of actually how to do it. Also, when you're thinking about goal setting, you want to make sure that your goal is attainable. If you set the bar too high, you're going to lose your motivation. So it's really important to encourage your kids to think about goals that they can obtain. And then also right now, in this time, it's really important to be mindful about what is attainable. There's so many changing variables right now. It's important to remind your child to be flexible with the goals and what's actually realistic in today's time, because things are so different and they are changing.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's important because, as we know, Jessica, the kids in many cases put this pressure on themselves, right? Achievement pressure, outcome goal pressure. I used to be able to get these grades. I'm not getting these grades. What's wrong with me? That sort of thing. And it obviously comes from a good place, which is pride in their work. But unless it's channeled in the right way, a focus on the process, a focus on what they can actually attain, it can actually be harmful, right? And not in their best interests.
Yeah, and can lead to more stress.
Mm-hmm. Great. Sorry. Great. Well, the next topic is around motivation. And this is a topic that, we thought is important because, especially with the pandemic, there have been a lot of challenges that parents have spoken to us about, kids and being motivated in school, and whether that's driven by anxiety about school, whether it's just driven by frustration with, the year that they've just had. And so, Jessica, talk a little bit about what doesn't work first, and then we'll talk about what does work. I'll kick us off with what doesn't work because I think I can speak to these easy as someone without a clinical background, but nagging, right? It's not pleasant for anybody. Bribery, giving bigger and bigger prizes, and just focusing exclusively on punishments. So if those are the things that don't work, Jessica, from a clinical perspective, when you think about what really does motivate kids, what are the things that work?
So, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So the things that do work, and right now I just want to say too, I have spoke to several kids recently who are sort of having trouble with this motivation, because the way that they learned last year through Zoom and distance learning, there was a huge motivation issue. It was very challenging for a lot of kids to feel engaged and excited about learning because of the platform. And so, I think kids are excited about being back in the classroom, but also just trying to refine their motivation and get excited about school again. So we know that there are two kinds of motivation. So there's internal, which intrinsic. So that's being motivated by something within inside of yourself. You're fulfilling something that's important to you. So you're motivated to do the work and to get it done. And then there's external motivation or extrinsic. And so this is someone doing something to either obtain a reward or to avoid punishment. And I feel like a lot of times parents jump to the extrinsic because you get so frustrated. You know your child's potential, they're not meeting it, and you want to encourage them, hey, I'll give you this reward, or I'm going to take this away if you don't do what we expect. And And I think it's also important for kids to recognize too, they might have these internal motivations and they might want to take 8 AP classes, which is great, but it also needs to be realistic, like we talked about before. So, just reminding your child that it's important to set the bar high, but it also needs to be obtainable as well.
And why is listening so important, Jessica, when you're thinking about motivating kids and understanding what motivates them?
Yeah, so, it's so important to, when you're talking with your child, to really get an understanding of where they are coming from. And there's some tips we have in talking with your child, just to make sure that you really are hearing them. So again, I talked about this earlier. You want to find a time when you can both be together to talk, and you're not going to be distracted by cell phones or TV or family coming in and out. And you want to approach the conversation in a very non-judgmental way. If you say, hey, your grades are slipping, like what, that's not you. They might become sort of defensive and not really feel like they want to open up. So if you can start out the conversation being non-judgmental and non-confrontational too. If they see that you're coming from a place of caring rather than judging and trying to start an argument, they're going to be a lot more willing to open up to you. Also, we like to say that if you talk less, they might talk more. So I feel like a lot of times parents want to jump in and say, hey, this is what I think you should do, or next time this happens, try this. And if you just sort of back off and let your child just start where they're from, you might get a lot more information than if you just try to solve the problem that you see right in front of you. And again, listen reflectively. I mentioned this earlier. It might seem really contrived to say to your child, what I hear you telling me is, but it's actually a really good way for them to say like, okay, my parents get me. They understand what I'm going through, what I'm struggling with. Or if you do repeat it back and they're like, no, like, that's not right. And then they can clear it up so that you really do understand what it is that's going on for them.
Yeah, that's great. And then, Jessica, I know that sometimes in your work, you'll use scaling, right? Which sounds a little complicated, but is actually pretty simple and effective. Could you explain how, even if a parent was communicating with their child, they could use a simple scaling way to figure out how their child is doing? Yeah,
so this is a good way to see where your child's at in terms of wanting to make change and how motivated they are. So you can just say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, you're not ready to make any changes at all, or 10 means you're ready right now. Where are you on wanting to get your math grade up? And if they say a 6, you can say, well, how come you didn't pick a lower number? And they might say, well, last year I didn't do all my homework, and I feel like this year I can really bring my math grade up. I didn't like not, getting a C. Maybe college is really important. So they might have some reasons, and that's their internal motivation, which is what you want and what you want to run with. And so that's a good starting off point. And sometimes it's easier to put a number to what you're feeling rather than try and actually explain it for kids. So, but let's say on the flip side, let's say your child picks a 1 or a 2. There's something that we do in therapy. It's called rolling with resistance. And you just kind of go along with it and say, okay, I see that you're really stuck right now. Maybe now isn't the time. Let's revisit this in a couple months and see how you're feeling. And sometimes when you go with them, then that makes them say, well, no, and I do want to get my math grade up. And so they kind of go against if you agree with them. So it's kind of like this reverse psychology thing sometimes that can actually work. So that's one way to kind of figure out where your child's at in terms of how they're motivated and if they are ready to make some changes in their life.
Yeah, that's great. I love the technique of allowing them to explain what drives them rather than trying to kind of impose, well, why aren't you feeling like this, or why aren't you feeling like that? That's great. It sounds like, kind of like, as I mentioned, guiding, not persuading, right? Helping someone recognize their own reasons for doing something. Is that kind of like the underlying principle here, Jessica, behind all these concepts?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just helping your teen really figure out the why of why they want to do something rather than your why, but figuring out their why is important. And once they figure it out themselves, then you can sort of, you know, assist them from behind rather than persuading them with your own reasons.
Yeah, that's great. So this is an interesting point. You know, while external motivation can encourage completion of the task, the quality of the work has been shown to be higher when a person is internally motivated. So, you know, what does that mean, Jessica? That, you know, just insisting that, you know, doing, hey, do your homework, versus like trying to figure out, you know, what motivates them about a class, what is demotivating them about not doing their homework. Is that kind of the gist of this?
Yeah. Like we've been saying, if a child can figure out what makes them want to give their all in a situation, if they have the goal of bringing up their math grade, I keep bringing that up, it's going to go a lot farther than if you say, hey, if you get a B on your math test next week, we will take you to the movies. That only works for so long, because after a while they're just sort of like, well, I don't really care about this, you know, I've done everything, I've gotten all the stuff I want. And then if you start taking things away, because sometimes parents will do that as well, then they just lose all their motivation together and say, why should I even try?
Yeah, it's really helpful. And I guess that talks about what you just mentioned, right? Don't overlap or decrease an internal motivator through an external one. So if you've already figured out, you know, what's driving them about taking pride in their work, don't try to kind of double down on it through saying, well, you'll be punished if you don't do well, right? Yeah, great. You know, you talked about a little bit about communication earlier in terms of how you know, the child is doing and what motivates them. Could you talk about this tip, which is around, you know, what they would like to earn and, you know, how to get them on track, and how that fits into this example with the homework?
Yeah, so a lot of parents kind of see this one and think, but wait, you just told us not to give rewards. And this is for a child who has found their internal motivation and they have a goal. And you know, we all want to be rewarded for our hard work. And if you are seeing that your child is putting in the effort and they're working the plan and they're getting back on track, and you can talk with them ahead of time too, like, you know, we see that you're really trying. How will we know when you're actually getting there? And then you can say, what would you like to see different in your life? What positive things are you hoping will happen? And if they say, well, if I get my math grade up, then I won't have as much homework. I won't have to be studying as hard and making up, you know, the extra work. And so I might have some more time to hang out with my friends on the weekend. And you can say, yeah, that's great. Absolutely. We can make that happen. So that's different because they're the ones with the goal and they're telling it to you. And you're saying, yes, we can have this cool thing happen because of the hard work that you've put in.
Great. Really helpful. And, you know, we just want to end on kind of a few tips. We're coming to the end of this section. You know, being supportive and not critical. When it comes to anxiety, and, you know, let's say a child is dealing with anxiety about, you know, talking to their friends or participating in class. Can you talk about why it's so important, Jessica, to be supportive and not critical, and what loop that starts?
Yeah, I think for parents who do have children who are experiencing any type of anxiety at all, it's really important to just be empathetic to your child, to really support them and say, hey, I get it. I understand why you would feel that way in that situation, or why you were nervous or scared, or why you don't like to go to that class because the teacher, you don't know if they're going to call on you or not, and really sort of validating what they're going through. By doing that, you're not approving the behavior, but you're saying, I get your feelings and I get why you're doing this. And then I like to encourage parents to remain curious. Ask questions until it kind of makes sense in your own mind what's going on. I think we can make a lot of assumptions, and some of those assumptions can be really incorrect. And so to really be able to help your child, you really need to know where they're coming from. But it is a really hard thing to have anxiety and to try and go to school and not worry about your fears and not worry about what kids think about you, and you lay in bed at night and you replay conversations in your mind, and so just really trying to say, hey, I get it.
Yeah, that's great. And then this is one where on the communication, you always talk about validating first, then reorienting. It's a fancy way of saying listen first and then try to change their behavior, right, Jessica?
Yeah. And I know as parents, you just want to jump in, you want to fix it for them. You want to give them advice and say, hey, this will work next time. And that sort of, kids put their guard up and they stop wanting to listen. So if you can just validate again what they're going through first and then offer suggestions, and ideally, it's important to collaborate with them rather than, saying this is what you should do.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And then the last note that we want to always make for parents is to also take it easy on themselves, right? Don't compare yourself to what other parents are doing. There's no right approach. We give a lot of advice, but you always say that, no one knows their kids better than parents do, right, Jessica?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the information we've shared tonight, some of it might work for you, some of it might not. And we just encourage you to take the pieces that sort of, resonate with you.
Yeah. So we're going to share a little bit now about resources and getting support. In the district, there are lots of supports for kids. Serena sorry, I'll jump to the broader supports first. Oops. Sorry, community resources. Serena, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so I know we're like 10 minutes away from 8, so I'll speed this up because I do want to give some time for the Q&A. So within our schools and community, we do have supported resources for your child. At the school site, your child has access to their counselors. Any additional support outside of school, you can browse through our our district mental health and student wellness website. This, you can browse through it, and if you have questions, you can always ask, your student's counselor. If you don't see something that maybe you're familiar with, feel free to send that information to me. I'm always more than happy to, find other resources that we can bring back into the community or to bring to the schools to support students. And we also have Daybreak Health as well, who we as a district partner with to support our students. I'll have Sid, why don't you just let us know what Daybreak is and how students can access your services?
Yeah, I mean, pretty simply, we are a mental health program for kids aged 11 to 19. We have an amazing team of counselors who work with kids one-on-one, virtually. And we help kids with a lot of things: anxiety, depression, bullying, trauma, even just pressure with the pandemic and general stress. And so we have an amazing partnership with the Simi Valley District, and we are partnering with them to sponsor care for kids. And so if you're concerned about your child and think they may need some support, we encourage you to speak to your child's school counselor and reach out to them as a first step to explore whether this could be a service that helps them and is provided by the district. So I will now jump to the Q&A portion because I know we probably have some great questions.
Yeah. Let's see.
Hi there. We have a lot of questions in here. We have a bulk of questions that ask about elementary age children. They're hearing the word teen and tween a lot, and we've got a lot of parents with younger kids here. So the questions range from any tips on how to work with a younger child who may have a harder time verbalizing what's going on with them, and who are showing anxiety, separation anxiety. They're afraid of noises at night. They're having trouble sleeping. You know, it's expressing anxiety in different ways. So, and we also have our elementary counselors on as panelists in case they want to pick up a couple of the questions too.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from maybe the elementary counselors, just because we haven't heard from them yet. And then Jessica, if you want to jump in after that.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm one of the elementary counselors. Just wanted to jump in and say, you know, for elementary students, these are all some great resources, and sometimes these younger students are not able to identify what is making them feel nervous, or even that they're feeling nervous or anxious at all. They might just be feeling it and be saying that they have a stomach ache. So really, you know, just talking to your child and finding out, you know, how they feel comfortable expressing their emotions. And it might not be that they might want to draw what they're feeling worried about, or color, or write it down, like we talked about with the gratitude journal, and just writing down your thoughts in your journal. So I think really just helping your child find the best way that they feel comfortable expressing their emotions.
Somebody had asked, at what age can anxiety be diagnosed?
Jessica, you want to take that one?
Yeah, you know, kids can present with anxiety at a really young age. I mean, there's some 5-year-olds as young as 5 that have anxiety symptoms. I think it begins to present more at older elementary and middle school. And I just wanted to kind of jump on what Laura was talking about as well. I know for younger kids, I sort of use the idea of like, if you feel busy inside, that's a feeling of anxiety. And some kids get that sort of like your tummy just feels busy, or it feels hot and you feel hot inside. Those are some ways to kind of help kids understand what it is that they're feeling. And also just a talk, like she said, you know, coloring or writing things down. We can also use colors to help really young kids sort of identify how they're feeling inside. Different colors can represent different feelings and emotions. Also, kids express themselves through play. So any way that you can play with your child, and whether it's through dolls or stuffed animals or whatever they're into, it's a really good way to kind of get them open up and talk a little bit more about what it is that they're feeling.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on to what Jessica and Laura already mentioned. There's play and there's also modeling, right? So as parents, we might know what anxiety look like or feel like. And even if that's just verbalizing that, oh, mommy feels nervous today, she has a presentation she has to present, right? So what does that look like? And play just through, yeah, you already mentioned dolls, stuffed animals, and even open questions. How was your day? And just let them lead us, and not how was your day, but did you behave? Did you get a red or whatever, you know, but like, how was your day? And if your child goes with in this direction, just ask a follow-up question, because that's where your child is going to share with you what is the most important thing about their day was. And maybe they had, you know, they were anxious or worried about something at school. So open-ended questions.
I just want to piggyback off of what Serena said, because sometimes you might get like, oh, it was a good day. And so some questions can be like, what happened today that you wished happened every day? Or what's a part of your day you wish you skipped, you know, that didn't happen? And questions like that, definitely modeling, doing a body scan. And that's something we're working with our students, you know, doing a body scan. My heart's beating fast. Like, oh, what does that mean? Am I nervous? Am I scared? My hands are sweaty.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? They can identify those symptoms, you know, when my stomach hurts or I'm feeling hot in my face. Is it because I'm shy? Is it because I'm scared? And really, you know, you practice, you model, you can say, you know, I have a presentation today and my body's feeling like I'm nervous because I'm feeling really cold and my stomach's hurting. So I know that I'm feeling nervous. So what I'm going to do, I have to remember and remind myself, you know, I practiced, I reviewed for this, and really practice that positive self-talk as well.
I want to get to some of these other questions because we have some really good questions in here. I had two questions. I don't know if it's from the same person or not, but how do you address a child having almost no motivation to do anything school related? And kind of on that, how do you enhance internal motivation?
I'll jump on this one. I think all kids are motivated to do something. So whether, and even the child who is not motivated to do anything is motivated by that. So I think if there is something in your child's life that they do enjoy, whether it be video games, a sport, hanging out with friends, sort of tapping into that. Let's say they enjoy soccer. You know, what do you enjoy about soccer? What makes you so motivated to get up in the morning, go to soccer practice, go to the games, and figure out, you know, if it's friends, if it's the feeling of accomplishment, if it's scoring a goal, if it's the physical activity, and then talking with them, how can you take that motivation that you have for soccer and turn it into your schoolwork or whatever it is that their motivation is lacking, and really try and brainstorm and find a way, just even one little thread of like, hey, okay, maybe my friends can help me out in this. Maybe my soccer mates or whoever it is can help. But really just trying to find out what it is that does motivate them and then translate it into the areas that they're not. And also, you know, talking with your child that there are things that we have to do the things that we want to do. And so saying, you know, we have to do these certain things to get to do the things that we want.
I've got two questions that kind of cross over. The first one is, what do you do when you know your child needs help, but they refuse to go meet with somebody? And then another mom has asked, my child is not sure when it's a good time to see the school counselor. The day is so busy. So if we can kind of grab on those two thoughts.
I'll let the school staff answer the first one, or the school one, because I think that's important.
I'll mention real quick, just at least in terms of contacting the school counselors. And every school is different. Every office is different. The easiest approach is to simply email the school counselor, you know, including that, you know, I would like to be able to discuss, you know, a particular topic with you. And if the student has a preferred time, including that in the message, you know, it might not be that on that day, that exact time or period is going to work, but being able to share, you know, this is what I'd like to discuss with you. You know, here are the times that best works. That lets the counselor know, you know, let's try to aim for that time versus maybe a different period where by taking you out of the class, you're causing more anxiety.
And I'll kind of piggyback on that for elementary. It's, you know, we do have elementary counselors at every one of our elementary schools. So we are all available for parents to contact us. And some of these questions are probably pretty specific to your student. So if you're having separation anxiety, or you're having anxiety and you feel like you're projecting it on your child and you just want some support and some ideas of things, feel free to reach out to any of us and we'd be happy to email, talk. You know, our counseling sessions that we provide for students, you know, we do have an open door policy. If a student needs something and wants it to check in, you know, or a parent wants us to check in with the student, we are available to do that too. So please utilize those resources. Go to your district page and find out who the counselor is at your school and get in touch with us so that we can certainly talk with you specifically about your student.
The question about what do you do when your child needs help, but they refuse to go to meet with somebody? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I can talk a little bit about, you know, elementary students. Sometimes they're not sure what counseling is, or they think, you know, especially when we start getting into the, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, you know, they think they're in trouble or they don't want to talk. So a lot of times we make it really, you know, it's fun, it's interactive, and we let them know, you know, it's not a must, it's just an opportunity that we're sharing with them. So, you know, a lot of times I will even tell parents, you know, let's just meet one time and we can see how it goes. And if you don't like it, that's okay. We can find ways that we can work around that. So typically once they come in there and they feel a little bit more comfortable and they build that rapport with whoever their counselor is, they're a little bit more apt to come in and understand that, you know, we're there to support them and we're there to help them.
Somebody has asked if we have any tools or exercises to help a kid who is having an anxiety attack to calm down.
Jessica, you want to grab that one?
Yeah, there's one technique that in the moment I think that they can do that I really like. It's a grounding technique. And basically you count down from 5. So you identify 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you can touch, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And I've actually had clients write that down. Some children I've worked with, I write it down for them. They keep it in their backpack. They keep it wherever. And in that moment, it just really helps to kind of ground you, to take your mind out of the worry, out of what is going on and what's causing you anxiety, and just give you a second just to kind of like be present in the moment and sort of kind of collect your thoughts. So that's one thing that we do in the moment when they're feeling sort of the anxiety coming on.
Somebody would like to know how to best support a 13-year-old first year as a teenager and transitioning to high school.
And I guess when it comes to something like that, it's trying to find out how the student is currently doing. I mean, where do they have any concerns? Is there any kind of timidness in terms of the school that they're attending? There's every student has different needs, and the supports are going to look very different. I think having those conversations with your child about how their transition to the school year is going is incredibly vital. And at that same time, creating a team dynamic with the school personnel, opening lines of communication with the teachers and the school counselor. If a student is having a tough time because they're having difficulty navigating, the day in terms of, academic success, well, maybe meeting with a couple of those teachers to find out what are some extra supports and resources available to them. But again, it's a little difficult, being that just the possible supports are pretty varied, but always having those conversations with your child and then reaching out to the team is incredibly vital.
I have a question. My daughter is in middle school, and I noticed she had some separation anxiety from being at home during the pandemic. Do you have any suggestions on how to comfort her when dropping her off for school? She loves school and doesn't ever ask to stay home, but she does tell me all the time she misses me. And I've had that version of the question several different ways. So I'm hoping that the other parents are hearing it too. Go ahead.
Since it's middle school, I'm happy to answer that one too. I would start again with a conversation of what is causing that separation anxiety. Is there, is she having an irrational thought that something's going to happen to you? What is something that, you could do to maybe ease her into the day? If, again, I have a number of students who are worried that something's going to happen to their parents, or more so at the start of the year when they transition back. And for some of them, it would be, okay, if you're having a really tough day, I'll call your mom after the 3rd period, and I will come over and give you a thumbs up if everything's okay. And then we're moving that later and later on as the day progresses. For other times, maybe it's just, sometimes it's a very large vision of what's happening in your day. And sometimes you just need to narrow it down for the child. What's your first class of the day, or what's the first thing that you do when you get to the school? Who do you meet up with as soon as you get there? Is there a place of comfort for you? I know some students maybe were a little overwhelmed at the start of the school year because just the number of people. Well, going to the library at the start of the day was a gift for a lot of the students. They had a place that they knew, as soon as I got there, I can go straight to that location. It's my comfort zone. Maybe I have a friend who's also going there. So that eases us into the day. You could also, the drive to the school, name 3 things that you're looking forward to for the day. Kind of redirecting the way that we're thinking.
I have a parent who, it's not a clear question, but she's concerned about the volume of work that our kids are facing at school this year. May be much more work than they've been used to for the last year and a half. And she kind of wanted to know if the school's aware of that and if they do things to offset that.
If I may address that piece there, this is Hani Youssef. Mr. Block and Mrs. Ellis, you may want to jump in as well, because we can't generalize what's happening in every single classroom or at every single school. I would suggest parents communicate directly with teachers. And that would be the best approach in terms of workload, in terms of examinations, in terms of homework, in terms of projects. Just because we've got 800 plus classrooms in our school district, my advice would be go directly to the teacher and have that one-on-one communication, or maybe if there's more than one teacher at secondary level, obviously contact as many teachers as necessary. Typically, it's very difficult to answer a question of that nature without actually having direct context and understanding of what's happening in that specific classroom.
Oh, we can't hear you, Jerry. No, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I would want to piggyback on what Dr. Youssef was saying. We are absolutely partners with parents at the schools. And, if your child is struggling or having issues, do reach out to the teachers. And also, I would recommend at home, making sure that you have routines in place and structures, and making sure that your child is organized in terms of, what do they do when they get home? What other kinds of activities do they have in place? And really helping your child to structure their time after school, if that might be an issue also. But definitely work with the teachers, work with the school, because we are here to help and support and find ways of helping kids through it.
I would just like to add that if our teachers are in front of your students on a daily basis, and they are your students' allies. And so whether it be an issue related to anxiety or feelings or emotions and or related to work, they are there to support their students. And if they're reaching out for help and assistance from our counselors, that's another bridge that the students can use to contact their counselors.
Maria would like to know, to the experts, in your experience with kids with anxiety, do they usually grow into adults with anxiety?
A lot of times, if the anxiety is not addressed in adolescence, it can carry over into adulthood. It's important to help your child receive the help that they need to learn how to manage their anxiety, so that when they do get to adulthood, they have those systems in place.
I think we pretty much exhausted the questions. There are 1 or 2 that I'm gonna, if the parents are still on, that I'm gonna answer you directly, because they're fairly specific. Somebody asked just now, is anxiety genetic?
Yeah, there can be a genetic component. And again, sort of just like what we talked about earlier, how anxiety breeds in anxiety. So if there is a lot of anxiety in the house that's not managed by the parents, then their children can pick up on it.
It's a combination of genetic factors, environmental factors, and the factors of what the person does to treat it as well.
All right, I think we've got them all.
Okay, thank you so much, Jake, for that. So we're gonna move to our closing statement. What a wonderful session. And just again, thank you parents for showing up. Thank you for listening and participating. That was so much fun. And I just want to say thank you to Jake Finch for helping us put this webinar together and doing all the wonderful technical behind the scene work, and Yvonne and Betsy for interpreting. Before we close out for the night, I want to just let you know that we will be sending out a follow-up email. What I can do is also include some more information on like counselors and just a short survey to see what other topics you might be interested in for our next webinar. So please be on the lookout for that. Once again, this webinar was recorded, so feel free to go back and watch it again for any clarification. Like, when you watch a movie twice and the second time you catch something that you didn't see the first time, that's how I kind of like to see rewatching a webinar. So that will be available for you. And I just really hope that you learned something new, something for you to take away from tonight. And we just really look forward to the next time. So thank you for that. Sid, anything else?
No,
Jessica?
I just wanted to say I really appreciate the chance to work with this awesome community and the great team at the district. So thank you everybody for the time. I appreciate it. And it was a great conversation. And Jessica, thank you for your time as well. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who joined in and everyone that helped put it all together. It's an important topic.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.